On this episode of Internet Business Mastery, we reveal the up and downsides of partnerships, and in the quick tip, we share a resource for amazing free content for entrepreneurs.
Welcome to InternetBusinessMastery.com, where you will learn to take control, make more money, and start an internet business today. Here are your hosts, Sterling and Jay.
Hey everyone, I'm Sterling.
And I'm Jay, and we're here on a mission to help you start your own internet business. Go to freevideogift.com to check out our free video that teaches you the right way to start your very own online business. So, Sterling, what's been on your mind mostly lately when it comes to internet business?
Well, oh boy. I know we have a huge list of things to do in our business, and we've got priorities and different things that we've already planned on working on, but I just keep thinking of Facebook.
Really?
And really getting like the page going, because we have a page on Facebook for Internet Business Mastery, which of course you can see at facebook.com/Internet Business Mastery, but we haven't really done a whole lot with it, other than, we have everything where we put our blog posts up and ask questions and do stuff like that. But some of the stuff I see other people doing that have gotten their, Facebook fan page up to 15,000 people or something like that. That just has never risen in our priority list, but I'm starting to get curious about it and starting to want to get into it and start really doing things that helps that happen.
Cool. Yeah, I'm all for that. Facebook's definitely powerful. Got a lot of people that use Facebook every day, day in and day out. I know, I've definitely seen lately with Facebook ads and Facebook pages a lot of interesting marketing things happening. It seems like it's constantly new things being tried. So there's definitely a lot of potential there, and I can tell that other people are having good success with what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep doing it, I would think. So.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that you and I both did recently was make our own personal Facebook profiles go to personal rather than business, and then tried to, move as many people over to the fan page. But I also realized lately that I'm using Twitter a lot less than Facebook in terms of how many times I go there a day. And, just as I'm watching even how I handle things and then reading things about how, Facebook is going and stuff, it's just made me think of that. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of ask out to our community a couple of things. One was if you are a Facebook master, know how to do all that, and you'd like to write a blog post for us on InternetBusinessMastery.com, definitely go to our Facebook page and let me know. I read the stuff a couple of times a day, the stuff on our wall, so definitely let me know and we can see what we can do. And then the other is we're going to do a Q&A episode here pretty soon. We talked about it last episode. And if you have any questions about internet business that you'd like us to answer on the show, definitely go to facebook.com/Internet Business Mastery, like the page, and then go ahead and ask us there on our wall. And we'll, get to as many questions as we possibly can on that show.
And now, the features segment.
So, Sterling, I thought it would be interesting to talk about a topic that it comes up. It comes up quite frequently. In fact, just recently, I've had a good handful of people ask me about this topic. Last episode, we mentioned that mastermind that we had here in Portland with some coaching students, and they all mentioned, or this topic came up quite a few times as well. And that is the topic of partnerships. And I imagine, one reason, I don't know if people ask you a lot about it. A lot of people ask me a lot about it. And I imagine one of the reasons why is because they know I'm, that my main pursuit, Internet Business Mastery, is a partnership with you. And so they're always curious about, how does that work? How to find a good partner, how to structure it. What are the upsides? What are the downsides? Should I go and find a partner? What kind of partner should I find, and things like that? And those are all great questions. But it's definitely something to carefully consider because there are upsides and downsides. And so actually I want to start out, Sterling, by asking you so let's say somebody came to you in person, maybe at a conference or a meetup or something, and they're familiar with Internet Business Mastery, with the stuff we teach, and they say, I'm really wondering about this partnership thing. If maybe I should go and find a partner in my business, if that would help me, finally rise to the new level, get things done, have success, if that would be a key factor in making things happen. What would you say to that person?
Well, that's what the episode's going to be about. Definitely there's pros and cons. Obviously it has worked for us in this, but I've been in many partnerships, and a lot of them actually didn't work because I didn't think through these pros and cons. I just was like, ooh, somebody else is interested in the same thing. Let's go for it. Now, I think the difference that happened for us in our partnership is when you and I started talking, even just to be friends, you were definitely taking action. And that I was really key on at the time. I didn't, partner with somebody that was just like, oh, that would be cool if we did something. It was, you were already doing something, and so was I. And I was like, I definitely want somebody that is taking action. I don't want to have to pull somebody along, which is what's happened in some of my other partnerships that I've had. I was far more enthusiastic. So it's definitely been very beneficial once I found one that worked, clearly. Or there's, right. This all wouldn't be, my whole life is where it is now because of a partnership that worked. So I wouldn't say don't do it by any means, but this pros and cons list that we're going to talk about is definitely what I would go into when discussing, if you're thinking about doing a partnership.
Right. Yeah, you definitely want to go in considering the important different factors. And I think this pros and cons list will help people decide whether a partnership is right for them or not. And but before we get to the pros and cons list, there's one more thing I want to mention. I mean, yeah, clearly partnership has worked well for us. As I think about a lot of the businesses that I've known, through just our various interactions with people, colleagues we have, mastermind friends that we have, joint venture partners, just people that we know in the industry or in various different successful businesses. Partnerships is something that I feel like comes up quite a bit. I mean, it's not like any kind of like scientific study of the matter, but these same pros and cons I think play a part for a lot of the other partnerships that we've seen. So I'm fairly confident in sharing this list that it'll help inform people's decision when it comes to partnerships. So yeah, we're not going to talk, necessarily how to find a partner or how you should structure a partnership. All those are also great questions. But first of all, we want to start off by just saying, well, what are the upsides and downsides so you can be aware of all those as you go in? So we'll go ahead and start. Let's go ahead. I originally had this list written out with pros first. Let's start with cons, and then we'll end up on the more positive note. How about that?
Nice. Let's do that.
So the first con is obviously there's an exposure to risk. When you're all of a sudden, putting your goals and your aspirations, maybe even your money, on the line along with somebody else in a way that's dependent on whether or not somebody else does things or the way that somebody else conducts themselves. There's an exposure of losing that money. There's exposure to the risk of just losing your time and opportunity costs. You could have been doing something. If it doesn't work out, well, maybe you could have been doing something better just on your own, or maybe there's a different partner that you could have been working with. So, there's always those risks of losing your time, losing your money, perhaps even losing some reputation if things come up later on down the line or don't turn out quite like you would expect. But, there's also risks in everything that has to do with business, and risk assessment is probably one of the most valuable skills that you can kind of develop as you go along. And what I mean by that is just getting a really good sense of how to evaluate what the potential risks are, what kind of risks you're willing to take, and whether or not a risk is worth it in the long run. But just definitely realize that I think sometimes people get excited, they jump right in, but they don't necessarily think through some of the exposure to risk, and it goes beyond just the money that each of you might put up for a venture. Like when we started Internet Business Mastery, I think we started a bank account. Each of us put $100 in there. We started an LLC. And so, of course, we were each putting $100 up for risk. Now, probably that $100 wasn't that big of a deal for either of us. Yeah. It was more just like is this going to work out? And really at the time, it was more just kind of a project to try out too. But, thinking through those risks is an important thing up front.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I was just going to suggest is definitely understand the different legal entities and how to use them to protect yourself. because you just never know. I mean, again, I've had some different partnerships that didn't particularly end well. And if you don't have at least that entity in place, it can get messy.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea at the very least to start an LLC with both your names on it as managing partners. And so at least there, it just kind of formalizes things a bit, definitely having some kind of agreement. Again, we don't want to get into the mechanics too much, but that's a great point is understanding the risks and a couple easy ways to protect yourself, like having some kind of legal entity to just kind of formalize things a bit.
And it's quite amazing, actually, as far as risk goes, how different people can see each situation later when you're not friends anymore.
Right.
So, what actually happened is seen through very different eyes when people are mad later. So you definitely want to do the risk.
Yeah, everyone's got their filters for sure, and those filters get very interesting when things have gone south. That's for sure. So another con, and I'm sure this is one that people probably do think about, is the fact that you might be splitting up the income now. And that might be a simple 50-50 split. It might be, that somebody's not necessarily a full partner, so maybe they get 20%, 30%, whatever you happen to have decided on. And, surely if you're going into a partnership and willing to give up some of that income, it's because you're hoping that person is bringing something to the table in terms of their knowledge, their expertise, their connections, their strengths, their list, or whatever the case might be, that are going to, in the end, make the pie that everyone's splitting up much bigger than it would have been had you just stayed on your own. So that's something to consider as well. Will that pie be bigger because you're going to end up splitting it with somebody? Now, the advantage to this is, especially a lot of times when a beginner is starting out, and we talk about having a team to outsource to and building that team up over the time, and you can, get things off of your plate that aren't your strengths, get things off your plate that you're not good at. But that takes an investment in hiring people and hiring virtual assistants, employees, freelancers in order to take care of those things. And not everybody starting out from the beginning is able to hire that kind of help. So an alternative is to bring somebody in that does have some of those interests and strengths that you don't have, in order to, because you don't have the money to pay them as a freelancer and employee, you guys are going in together and going, well, okay, we're both speculating that this is going to work as a venture, and so we're agreeing now to split the equity in the business, to split the income that the business brings in. But you have to, look at that downside, and I'm kind of pointing to the potential upside of that as well. But you want to make it, because I have gotten into partnerships before where I obviously I thought about it a bit, but in the end, it turned out that there was some things I definitely missed, and the pie was not going to be bigger as a result of the partnership, and I was going to be giving up a lot of income, even though in the end I was still bringing far more to the table. So weigh that out carefully as well when you're considering a partnership.
It's actually strange to put some of these down because, splitting up the income, I think once, maybe a year or so ago, one of my friends here in Salt Lake asked me if that was an issue for me, and I don't know why I hadn't really ever thought of it. Like, clearly we split the income, so and it hasn't occurred to me like it seems like it would, like a major con, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm giving half my money to this other person. It's interesting because if the partnership works and you're both going for the same goals and all these things are happening, the growth together is awesome. So I just never think about it that way until just recently.
Oh, really?
Only reason. And actually, we were together when it happened there in Portland just a few weeks ago, when we saw one of our students make just a little bit more than us. That's when I went, oh, wow. Like my split, he made a little bit more of. And then I was like going, oh, well, actually, that's only half. So really, we're still half more, but it's a funny thing that's what it occurred going, oh, well, I would be double if it was just me.
Right.
Just to, in my mind, financially still beat a student. And I think it's awesome to see students do so well, but it definitely makes your mind go, oh my gosh, how did they do that?
what's going on here?
What's going on here? But that was the only time I've ever like actually tried to calculate out, how much more would come to me? I just never thought about it like that before, just because our goals and fulfillment and freedom and all that is aligned, and I'm getting what I want from it. So it's an interesting thing how that, the splitting the income thing occurs.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in a good partnership, I mean, not that it'll never cross your mind because, whenever and maybe it doesn't because it's not like you cut a check to me or me a check to you. We just both go into the bank account and make a transfer to our other accounts to pay ourselves. But yeah, in a good partnership, it's probably not going to really occur to you that much. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm giving half my money, quote unquote, my money away. However, if you do find yourself thinking about that on a regular basis, that's probably something to think about. That's a clue to something. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad partnership, although that might be a clue that it is. Or it may just be that you need to maybe shift a little bit your perception of the situation. But I think that's an excellent point you make, Sterling. It's that, in a good partnership, it's not necessarily going to be something you really think about. I mean, definitely consider it in advance as you're considering the partnership. But then once you get into it, it's not like you're going to be constantly thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm always giving half my money away, because in the end, if things are working, that it just doesn't, it just doesn't occur to you that way. All right, so the last con would be just I guess putting a dependence on someone else, and just depending on different personality types. This will affect people in different ways. Some people are very independent. They don't like to think that, a key part of their life or a key part of their business is dependent on somebody else. I mean, I've been in, I have this business partnership. I've done other business partnerships, and I've been in a number of bands which are very much similar to business partnerships. In fact, probably even more complex, because now it's a partnership with, instead of one person or two, it's 4 or 5 people, and it's all a bunch of artists who are very emotionally motivated. So it can get kind of a sticky, and it ends up being in some ways analogous to kind of like a marriage of now all of a sudden a key part of your life is potentially dependent on somebody else. And, we can get into the whole psychology of codependence and, whether that's, what kind of healthy kind of dependence and unhealthy kind of dependence. But it's something just to consider for yourself, depending on your own personality type. Is that going to be an issue for you? And, interestingly enough, up until the beginning of 2007, I still had a number of other projects that I was, putting a lot of time in and trying to get to work. But then at the beginning of 2010, finally just made that decision, I'm going all in with Internet Business Mastery. This is the thing I'm enjoying most. It's making the most progress. It actually, occurred to me, it's like, look, the thing that has always made the most progress is this thing that I have as a partnership. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. And since making that decision of focus, things have grown at an even more accelerated rate. So the reason I brought that up is that one of the things that was a sticking point, there was a number of reasons why I didn't do that before 2010, but one of them was just this thing I had in my mind, this belief of, well, I can't put all my eggs in one basket that is a basket that's dependent on somebody else to, support that basket and fill that basket, because then I'm just exposing too. And, that was something I had to look at for myself and kind of consider. So that dependence, I mean, if everything is working well in a partnership, again, it won't really occur to you, and it becomes more of a support, and it's, the sum is greater, or the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, or however that saying goes. But it is something you need to consider up front, because everybody reacts to that kind of dependence in their relationships differently. Yeah,
I think the thing that I look at most now, or when I'm telling people about it, is finding someone that is as motivated as you is the key. If one wants it more than the other one, it's going to be a big issue. So,
right.
And we, easily once a year talk about our motivation for what's coming up and what we want to do. And I don't know if it's just pure luck or whatever, or we both just had made really good decisions when we met, or I don't know what it was, but we just happened to be online, I think every time we have. So, but that's what always occurs to me, because if one person wants to go 100 miles an hour and the other's fine at 35 miles an hour, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if it ever feels like one person having to drag the other along, like you said earlier, then yeah, that's gonna get old fast. Okay, so there's the cons to consider. Consider exposure to risk. Consider if you're willing to split the income or if the pie is going to be bigger, so your share of the income will end up being bigger eventually. And consider the dependence on someone else and if that's something that's going to be healthy or unhealthy for you, if that's going to be a problem. So now let's talk about some of the pros. Well, I think one of the coolest things, and again, in whether it's the bands I've been in, whether it's in my marriage to my wife, whether it's in this partnership for internet business mastery, is that you end up with strengths that complement each other. And this one has become even more apparent to us in our business over the last, 12 to 18 months, year and a half. As, in 2010, we did a lot of work on Unique Ability, which is a book that we both read. We both took the Colby assessment, which assesses your strengths. We both took Strengths Finder 2.0. And we were both really kind of analyzing, well, what are the things that fulfill us most in the business, in life and in the business? What are the things, the strengths that each of us have? As we each individually discovered our strengths, we were able to see, oh, here's how those probably snap up well, and here's how we can work together really well, or here's why we're already working together really well. And so those strengths kind of can offset each other. I mean, I know. For instance, in my marriage, I'm very much the person that I like to kind of put the brakes on and analyze things and think about it. And I'm a little bit slow to adopt change when it comes to certain kinds of things. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say I'm risk averse. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am in business. But, when it comes to like moving to Argentina or moving across the country to New York or, some of the big things that we've done in our life with my wife and I, a lot of times those started as her idea and she's all excited. Like, here we go. And she's kind of got that big idea, let's hit the gas, here we go kind of thing. And I've got the, okay, good idea, let's hit the brakes for a second and analyze it kind of thing. And, I think it's important to have both sides, because if it was only me by myself making the decisions, I probably wouldn't have done some of these really awesome things that have enriched my life. But if it was, only her, she might have dove into some things without realizing, oh, whoa, there was a potential pitfall that I didn't foresee because I didn't stop and think about the practicality of whether or not that was a good idea or the timing of it or some preparations that should go into place. And that's going to come into play in any good business partnership as well. And so that complementing of strengths is definitely going to launch things forward well for you.
Yeah, and actually, when we really first started the business, we basically kind of made sure everything was exactly equal. Like, even on the show, we would both read off everything equally and trying to, just keep that equally. But as we found, what our strengths and what fulfills us and that kind of thing, we've shifted gears with that. Instead, it's more about trying to be more fulfilled in what we do rather than it has to be exactly equal. So, as you can tell on the show, Jay actually usually does more of the talking and more of the direct teaching, and that's because that's one of his strengths and a fulfillment, whereas I come in and give stories and examples and try and do it from that angle, which is what I really love to do, even if that means I talk 25%. It's funny because in partnerships and stuff like that, those things occur. It's like, oh, I got to be a part of it 50%. And it's an interesting thing as you find those complementing strengths and stuff like that. It ended up working much better once we went to the way we do it now. And, the show seemed to do better and, it worked out well. So, that's an upside if, you do complement each other.
Yeah, and like a flip side of that, my strength of teaching can shine on stage or on the show or things like that. But if we were like sitting down at dinner with a bunch of potential joint venture partners, you're going to be the one that's like lighting up the conversation, telling stories, making people laugh, getting people to connect with you very quickly, and doing that kind of thing. So understanding those kinds of strengths that each of you has is going to then help your business. When you bring those into alignment and get them resonating with each other, then now all of a sudden your business can really thrive because you don't have these things that are, one of two things. Either, when you've got weaknesses, and we're not saying you should work on your weaknesses. In fact, the opposite. We're very much believers in focus on strengths and fulfillment. But, there's still things that need to be done. And if those are not your strengths, then either they're just not going to get done, which could be a problem, or, so you avoid them and then they just fall through the cracks, or you do force yourself to do them and you hate it and you get drained. And so then that's not going to be good for the business either. So a partnership kind of helps ease that, because now you can distribute things accordingly throughout the partnership.
Well, and I guess the one other thing that comes up about that then is if you had the exact same strengths, that might be a problem. Like if both of us were exactly vying for the teaching, I don't know if that'd be a problem or not. Yeah, I don't know how that looks because I don't have that. But I think that if one person was, or both people were, really type A type personalities, it seems like that might be a problem. Or if both were the breaks, like you were saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. Those would definitely be things to consider when you're deciding to partner up with someone.
Yeah, as you're going into a situation. In fact, if somebody was considering seriously going into a formal partnership, I totally encourage them to sit down and have a conversation about these things. Maybe both take the Colby assessment, both take StrengthsFinder, chat about those things and kind of see how they match up. All right, number 2 pro is that there's a lot of confidence and camaraderie that comes into partnerships. Internet business, it has that advantage of you can do it on your own, in your home, sitting in your underwear, the whole quintessential thing anywhere in the world. But, that can also be very solitary. And some people's mode of working, some people's personalities don't lend itself very well to that. In fact, my wife's tried a couple times to launch her own internet business. And even though she loves this stuff that I do, and she's actually very good at marketing, she's discovered about herself that she needs to have a team to work with. She needs to have other people in person that she's, collaborating with and talking about, throwing ideas around and learning together. And that's just something that she needs and wants. So I think, one thing that sometimes discourages people is just feeling very disconnected in the decisions that you have to make for your business and feeling like you're kind of just on your own. It might be that maybe your family and your spouse, they just don't really understand, not that they may or may not be supportive, or maybe they are supportive, but it's not like you're going to sit over dinner and talk about, oh, here's this cool new autoresponder series idea I had. And so, this just goes back to masterminds and having people that you associate with. But in a partnership, you have that every day. There's not a day that goes by, a work day at least, that goes by that Sterling and I aren't at least chatting, instant messaging on Skype, probably even chatting on the phone. And when we make the big decisions of business, we go forward with a lot of confidence because we know we've made that decision together. And if there were any blind spots, well, hopefully with 2 of us, we are more likely to catch that. Or, I might have an idea and then I start doubting it, and then, Sterling will go, no, that's a really good idea. And so now, it's like, yeah, okay, cool, let's move forward with it. And so there's less of that doubting yourself, less of wondering whether you've made the right decision because 2 people or 3 or however many partners have made that together. Now, the third pro is, we kind of touched on it a bit with the strengths and with the confidence thing, but that's just kind of checks and balances. Something that we get asked sometimes as well, like, how do you make decisions? What if you disagree? And, I think it's probably a good thing that we don't always agree. Sterling said, yeah, for whatever reason, we have matched up well and often have the same motivations and level of ambition, things like that. But still, sure, there's moments where it's like, I think, hey, we should do this. And Sterling would go, well, I don't know. We considered this. In fact, we just had a big year, our quarterly strategy meeting recently, and we were talking about what things will have the biggest ROI, and we each kind of wrote down our answers. And I said, well, here, share with me what, why you picked the ones you picked of what you think we should focus on. And there were things I hadn't considered. And so then all of a sudden I changed what I was thinking, and that shifted the direction that we were going. So being able to, no matter what, we're always going to have our filters, our blind spots. And again, that's why we recommend so much having masterminds and mentors and partnerships, even if to help in those checks and balances, whether it's weaknesses you have or whether it's just, things that you just might just not have thought about. Because, I used to think, and again, I keep sharing the band thing, but I think I learned a lot about partnerships and relationships doing the band thing. I used to think it's like, well, as an artist, as a musician, I need to be like this self-reliant island where like I write the perfect songs and lyrics on my own, and I can go into the studio and know exactly the right effects and production to put on the song to make it perfect. But that just wasn't true. I found when I was able to learn that writing songs with other people and going in and having a producer in the studio with me or with us was going to end up in a better thing, because our ideas, I couldn't have all the great ideas on my own. It just wasn't possible. So that kind of those checks and balances that come with having a partnership are an advantage as well. The next thing is just accountability. I mentioned earlier that, before the beginning of 2010, I was still focusing about half my time on a bunch of other projects as well. And in deciding whether or not to shift focus to one thing or the other, I was thinking back on the previous several years and which things seemed to have made the biggest progress and given me the most fulfillment. And for a number of different reasons, Internet Business Mastery, leading up to 2010, had been the thing that had always made the most progress, that I was always putting myself out there the most, trying new things the most, getting the most done, putting things off less. And I think, again, there's a number of reasons for that, but I think one is just some good, simple accountability. And, it's not like in a partnership you have to have where, it's not like I'm, pinging Sterling on Skype at the end of the day and going, hey, so did you put in X hours today? Hey, so did you get such and such done? But at the same time, I know that he's there depending on me to get certain things done. And we have a weekly strategy meeting. We talk about, what happened last week, what's going on next week. And that does inform my decisions and my motivation in getting things done. It's a lot, when I know I have to get on the microphone with somebody else at a specific time in the morning, well, then, I'm less likely to maybe just put it off and say, I'm going to just kind of mess around and do whatever today. And so, I think that a bit of accountability is just good for forming good habits. Whatever source that comes from, a partnership is just one place you can find some of that accountability. A mastermind's another, a mentor is another, whatever the case may be. But that's definitely something that can help in reaching new levels of success, is to have that accountability there.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I hear a lot when I'm talking to somebody about internet business is they say, I don't know if I could get myself to actually work if I was just at home every day. And
right.
Obviously, having somebody that you've said, okay, at 1:00 we're going to record, that certainly helps at least get that done. If not, before they can do their next task, you've got to finish the task you're doing. So they're waiting for you. Things like that definitely help with accountability. I think, well, for me, it wasn't, I was so driven by what I wanted. It's usually not hard to get myself to do stuff. It's actually usually hard to stop, especially when you get so excited about what you do and what type of mission you're on and that kind of stuff. But, definitely it can be a pro to have somebody there for that accountability if that's an issue for you.
All right, one more pro here to go, and that is that you don't have to do all the work yourself. There's a lot of things to get done in internet business, and even if you've got a great system like in the academy to walk through, it could probably still feel like a lot sometimes. And again, some of those things might not be your strengths. Some of those things may just not interest you. Or even if you do find a lot of it interesting, if you can get it done twice as fast, well, that means you can get to success and progress twice as fast, get to making money twice as fast. And we hinted at earlier, it's like, what about splitting up the income, and what would that look like if I was making all the income? Well, if that ever crosses my mind, I think one of the first things I think is like, well, likely that income would not be nearly as big had I been just doing this by myself. So, because there's two of us operating at a high level with similar goals, getting things done day in and day out. And so, there's only half the things that would have gotten done over the last 5 years if I had been doing this by myself. And half the things getting done probably means making half the money in the end. So, just not having to take all that weight on your shoulders yourself is a nice relief, and knowing that someone's out in there and hitting the grindstone a bit with you as well. Yeah,
and actually at the beginning it can be especially nice, but it's also the other aspect of doing everything is also learning everything. So now we can kind of split that up too. So, like right now, Jay happens to be doing a lot with stats and conversion and stuff. And that can mean that I don't, what I know right now, I don't have to add to it because he's handling that, which that's time too. If it takes you, a couple of weeks to learn how to do something and then test it and try it, and your partner did that, you can be taking that same time to learn something else that's going to forward the business. So it's the time of learning as well as doing.
So I just want to finish off with another little bit of a story. Several years back, I just read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which both of us have mentioned was a mindset shifting, paradigm shifting book for us. And but the thing was, at the end of the book too, I was left a little bit frustrated. And we like to joke about how, if I ever recommend that book to somebody, I always say, hey, just be careful. After you read that book, you just might be chronically unemployable after that.
Yeah.
And I was definitely in that situation of going, okay, I think I've realized that I cannot continue on this track and be happy for much longer. But at the same time, I was kind of like, well, I just don't know what direction to go. I don't know. And fortunately, my wife and I, we had read the book together and we'd talk about it, but we were still coming from the same place at the same time and just kind of like, well, what do we do now? And fortunately, somewhere in reading different things and studying different things, the suggestion had come up to look for a local real estate investing club, because real estate was on my mind, since he talks a lot about real estate in that book. And I can remember the first day, and I don't remember how I found the meetup. I probably just went to whatever search engine at the time and just meetup.com wasn't around, so I'd probably just searched for Salt Lake City Real Estate Investing Club and came up with something that way. And thank goodness I did. I can remember getting off work at 5 and getting my car and running over to the local library, not knowing exactly what to expect. I walked into this library, went down to the room downstairs where this was going to be held. And I just remember walking into that room and all of a sudden seeing, 40, 50 people all there, getting ready, milling around, chatting with each other, sitting down in their seats. I think I might have brought a friend along with me, and just sitting down in that room. And so first of all, I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. There's a whole room of people who are probably interested in something similar. That's why they're all here. And then, this guy that ended up being one of my mentors shortly thereafter stands up and starts talking about his experience, and people are asking questions. And I'm going, wow, that's the same question I've been having for the last month. And, somebody else going, oh, yeah, you know what? I tried this thing. And, and all of a sudden I'm going, oh, I never thought about trying that. And I remember just coming out of that meeting with so much more excitement, enthusiasm, hope, direction, because I had found a support system. I had found other people like me with similar goals, wanting to do similar things, asking similar questions. Some of them had answered questions I had already, and I was able to get those answers. Some of them had thought about things that I hadn't thought about. I was able to share some things that I had found. And together, that all of a sudden I felt like, well, I'm not in this alone. And I think there's just something that in common, for progress and happiness in life, having that connection with other people is very valuable. And we all need a little support in the things that we're trying to do. You can't expect yourself to just do it alone. To be able to, again, that thing of me being that island as a musician, as an artist, self-sufficient, it was a myth. And I was actually kind of miserable trying to do it that way. The minute I opened up to allowing my bandmates to write the music with me and allowing a producer to come in and work with me, I made better art, I had more fun, and it was just, we had more success because of it. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be with a partner, though a partnership has worked out really well for us. And like I said earlier, we know a lot of people have done really, really well with partnerships. And I think there's good reason for that. And so in this episode, we've shared some of the pros and cons that you can consider if you're thinking that might be a direction to go. But whatever it is, whatever that support is that you'd like to find, we just strongly encourage you to get out there and look for it. Find other people that on a regular basis you can mastermind with, that you can talk with. I was just in the Academy Mastermind yesterday forums checking out some posts, and there was this one post that had just been put in by a gentleman, I believe his name is Bill, that was saying, he was just thrilled. He was so stoked because he had just been on a Skype mastermind with 2 other Academy members, and they'd been just chatting about things that they were all working on and answered some questions for each other. And I think even a couple of them had decided to work on a little bit of something together as well. And, you could, as I read his post, I could just tell how enthusiastic and motivated and energized he was by having found, this bit of a support system and having those people to have that camaraderie with on a regular basis. So the Academy Mastermind forums, which is a part of a membership in the Academy, is a great place to start. And if you're thinking, I'd really just like to find one or two people, and even if it's, remotely across Skype, it can work wonders, and you just might find just the right partner for you as well in whatever pursuit that you might want to do. Somebody who has the kinds of strengths that you don't have, and, with whom you can work and bring your strengths to the table as well. So, if you're listening to this and going, yeah, I do need to find a bit of a support system, we just strongly recommend checking out the Academy, getting the Academy Mastermind Forum, seeing if there's local meetups, and getting out there and meeting with people, and seeing if that doesn't help you find that next level of energy and motivation that might help you. So if you want to check the Academy out, you can get your risk-free trial. I'll just go ahead and mention if anybody's wanting to try that out, you can go to internetbusinessmasteryacademy.com and find out more information about that. But hopefully you enjoyed this discussion about partnerships. Definitely remember those pros and cons as you're going into it, and it'll just be a much better experience whether or not you decide to go into that partnership. It'll just help you make all the important considerations up front that'll help that be a rewarding thing in the long term.
And remember, there's a live question and answer call each month for Academy members where you can ask us anything about starting and running an internet business. If you're not a member, no problem. Just go to internetbusinessmasteryacademy.com and sign up now.
It's time for the Internet Business Quick Tip.
All right, so this episode's quick tip. If you're listening to this show, we know you like, you're a person of action who likes to listen, learn, find out new ideas, get, motivation. And, it's always very fulfilling when we hear people on Twitter or write us emails going, I love listening to your show. It always gives me I love getting on the plane with your show loaded on my iPhone because I know I'm going to learn something, or I love listening because it gives me that shot of motivation that I need every week. And that's one of the things that we love doing this show for, is to offer that to people. But we also know that there's only so much content that we create, and you probably have other things that you'd like to listen to do that same thing for you, as both of us love to go on walks or exercise with listening to things. And so recently we were diving into, this is something I'd never really checked out that much, and for some reason I ended up in there recently inside of iTunes. We have got the podcast directory, but then there's also iTunes U. And the difference is that everything in iTunes U is materials from universities and colleges who have recorded classes and things and put them up there so that people worldwide can have the opportunity to listen to and learn from their curriculum. And there's some impressive classes in there. And again, I can't remember why it was that I ended up in the iTunes U directory, but like right there on the homepage was this class series on game theory from, I believe it's like Yale. And, for those who don't know, game theory is all about just strategic thinking. How do you make the right decision based on what the competition might do, when the outcome depends not only on what you might do, but also what the other person might do, like playing a game of chess, which applies in real life as well. I was like, wow, that's awesome. And I downloaded it and I've started listening to it in the car and as I walk, and it's amazing. It's awesome. It's really, really good material. Another one I found on critical thinking. There's ones in there on marketing. So anyway, if you've never checked out iTunes U, that's the quick tip and suggestion for this episode, is to give it a try. Go in there and poke around if you're looking for a little more information to fill the time in between Internet Business Mastery episodes. Go ahead and give iTunes U a try.
Yeah, I also like the fact that just in general, they have some really high-end schools that contribute to it, because I was taking a philosophy class, I believe it was in Harvard, as well as a logic class, which, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, these kind of places, it's cool to get that education, and it's free. That just kills me.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to get dozens of resources such as this one, you can find them in the Internet Business Mastery Academy, along with video tutorials showing you exactly how we use many of them. So to get your risk-free trial membership to the Academy, go to internetbusinessmasteryacademy.com.
You've been listening to the iconoclasts of the 9 to 5, Sterling and Jay. Sterling and Jay invite you to discover one of their most popular video programs ever, the Online Business Freedom Formula. Visit freevideogift.com right now to get instant access to this life-changing video series, pulled directly from the acclaimed Internet Business Mastery Academy membership community. Go now to freevideogift.com. Take control. Make more money. Start an internet business today.